Well, we have now embarked on exposure of Satanists at a level never seen before. This report today will show you how they make their moves, the enemy, who they are after, and how much of that exposure is making a difference leading to the upcoming elections. President Trump finally called out the jihadists with that word. The Game of Thrones video you saw in the intro was dropped. He's about protecting our children, something we would never have without the military ensuring that the last election wasn't stolen. So much to get into today, folks. 514,000 followers on Rumble. That's our go-to for free speech on videos. You probably hear us on podcasts also. We really appreciate your support there. And we hit number 2 on the leaderboard with our last video report there with the greatest military intelligence operation of our time, next to Dan Bongino. Thank you so much for that.
If you've been wanting something a little extra, our rhinestone collection is just for you. The same comfy apparel you already love, just with a little sparkle. We always encourage you to wear your And We Know apparel out in hopes that you'll meet like-minded people, and you're sure to stand out in these. Available now on the Shop And We Know site.
And We Know site, and that brand new andweknow.com site you go to, and you'll find all kinds of goodies. And we hope that you guys go check it out. Now, you saw in that intro, they used the Game of Thrones intro and kind of changed it up a little bit to show you Washington, D.C. The White House put that together. The Capitol restored, order restored, the Capitol reclaimed. It was well done. And kudos to those guys who worked hard to make sure that that was put together the way it was. Thank you so much, man. It's great to have a video team that actually knows what they're doing. Makes a huge difference for all the comms going forward through the mission playing out to restore the minds of the people back to where we're supposed to be in bringing our nation back to looking solid, looking good. And we're grateful for that White House, the Oval Office, and what it means in this battle that we're in each and every day together.
One thing is the Senate has to get going on Save America. I really believe that because people expect that to happen, and it has to happen. And you have a couple of Republicans who aren't voting for it, a few. You know, it's about an 89% issue with the overall population, including Democrats. Save America is voter ID with photo, by the way. You know, it's nice to have they're fighting on the photo. We don't want a photo. Well, why don't they want? Because they want to cheat. You know, it's very simple. There's only one reason. But we want to have that. We want to have proof of citizenship. So be nice to say, yes, I'm a citizen. Here's my citizenship, proof of citizenship. And ideally, but we're not even stressing this because that's only a 79% issue. You know, that's not in the 90s. The mail-in ballots are so corrupt. You know that.
Right.
They're so corrupt. You saw it in California a couple of weeks ago when Spencer Pratt had a very substantial lead. And the election kept going on and on, you know, going on for weeks. It might still be going on, actually. But all of a sudden, you hear a report that the woman that nobody ever heard of is surging.
That's right. Save America Act. He's still talking about it. He's been on all types of shows recently. And, of course, Caroline Levitt's been sounding the alarm also.
Policies across the board. Our country is safer. Our country is more affordable. We cannot allow these radical, extreme, far-left liberals to take power. We have steady progress under President Trump right now. If these radical, extreme liberals are given a chance at power here in Washington, D.C., they will try to obstruct this president and turn our country into a communist hellhole with every extreme liberal policy that they try to implement.
And, of course, we know the only way that they're going to win is through cheating. That's how they operate. We've learned this over and over again, and loved how this came out. This came out. Wayne Allen Root, exclusive interview with President Trump, and what is stated here about the national emergency so we can get that Save America Act going through.
Because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything. Now they're on recess. They don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 under Reagan that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the President of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And
Let
you
me
don't
just say
even
that
need
stranger
the
things
Senate
have
vote.
happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at
He just said stranger things have happened, if you guys missed that, from President Trump. And he'll leave it at that. Not going to tell the enemy or what they're working on and what's going on behind the scenes, but this is all building up one day at a time. President Trump put this meme out. If you're looking at your screen, Pocahontas and Abdul is in quote marks, almost like his name is being highlighted, want to take your stuff and crash the economy. Now, it was a brilliant question that finally came forward, talking about Abdul, and he finally said what we've been waiting for.
They're putting forward making life easier for.
Well, the one thing is we have jihadists being elected all over.
Jihadist being elected. Jihad. Finally. Using the word we've been waiting for, and it just takes one little at a time to get the information out to the people. Communists, socialists. Now he's using the word jihadist.
The place we have this whether
making life easier for.
well, the one thing is we have jihadists being elected all over the place. We have this whether it's communism, jihadism.
Jihadism.
It's a lot of friend of mine called up. He said, really, you should use the word jihadist because that's what's happening. And I'm not sure that anybody, if you take a look at what happens in other countries, I think that's not going to be necessarily the way we want to live. But when you look at the radicalism and the craziness of the candidates and the stupidity of what they're suggesting, let's get rid of the Supreme Court, let's get rid of the presidency, let's get rid of the Senate. They want to get, sometimes I'd like to get rid of the Senate too, but I don't say it, and I wouldn't do it. But, they want to get rid of the Senate. They want to get rid of, ideally, the House, but they're thinking about maybe keeping the House. Isn't that nice? These are people that have been not successful. They're people that have been, in many cases, failures. They come from other failed countries, and they come here and they tell us how to run our country. They come from places like I won't mention because I don't want to get myself into a controversy, but they come from countries that are not great. They come from, let's say, as an example, Somalia. They come in and then they tell us how our Constitution, how our Declaration of Independence, how it works. It doesn't work that way, and they're not smart. They have no aptitude. They have nothing going, and they're telling us how to run our country. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that they start off, now I may be wrong, but, they start off with a big disadvantage. People don't want to have
No radical jihadists in our country. However, Natalie Winters says Massachusetts moves to create a Muslim commission to help place Muslims in government and shape state policy. You're looking at that on your screen. The bill orders it to identify and recommend qualified American Muslims for appointive positions at all levels of government. Now let's look at how that worked out for Denmark.
In 1992, the Danish government passed a law allowing the immigration, specifically of 321 refugees from Palestine. And the study followed them from 1992 to 2019. Out of the original 321 Palestinians, 204 ended up being convicted of a crime. 71 of them were jailed, and 176 ended up on welfare. So that accounts for 63% became criminals and were convicted, and more than half ended up on welfare. So they followed the second generation. They had 999 children. 337 ended up being convicted of a crime. 132 of them ended up being jailed, and 372 of them ended up on welfare. So that's a 34% conviction rate and a 37% welfare rate. Their very own Justice Minister later stated in a 2019 interview, and this is the guy who presided over this entire thing, by the way, and I quote, "These asylum seekers should not have been let in."
Yeah, so it's asylum seekers alone, but, these folks have been flooding in little by little, and it just takes a matter of time before they wake up, the masses, to what's playing out. Now, let's show you what's happening for those that haven't been following, what's happening in other parts of the world when these guys start getting into power, these Muslims.
So you think everything is fear-mongering or Islamophobia or all this nonsense? Check out this video right here.
What do you think's going to happen in the UK? Any big changes, or is it going to keep going down this road?
Did you see the intel from the ex-MI6 agent?
No, what happened?
It broke that there's around 80,000 jihadi trained soldiers, allegedly, within the United Kingdom, waiting for the go word, and the Albanians have been supplying firearms to them over the last 5 to 10 years. They're storing the firearms and the ammo in the mosques, so people can't go in and search even during wartime. It's like a rule.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, given the amount of men and migrants that have flooded to the UK in the last 15 years, I'm extremely concerned about the safety of everyone in the United Kingdom, because we gave up our firearms in 1997. So let's say, for example, the general British public have no firearms, no way to protect themselves. And then we have 80,000 soldiers already embedded within the United Kingdom, and they come out with firearms. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so that's in the UK. How did this play out over the past 20 years? Especially with Obama when he walked in and created the Islamic invasion. Not created, but elevated it, because it was already happening. We got more on that in a minute. Fellow Patriots, LT here. I'm inviting you to join me for a very special Alaska cruise, August 7th through the 14th, 2027. This is time with the And We Know family, live Q&A, behind-the-scenes stories, real conversations, and fellowship with people who love God, truth, and freedom. Book early for the best cabin selection at inspirationtravel.com/LTC or call 855-557-3042. Again, that's 855-557-3042. Link in the description box below. So Segeza Eterna at Final Telegraph on X put this out. Barack Obama responsible for the Islamic invasion of America. Barack Obama is not merely the worst president in American history. He is the deliberate architect of an invasion, a traitor who opened the gates of our civilization to an enemy army disguised as refugees while he stood by with a smirk and watched the demographic weapon detonate. This is not incompetence. This is calculated sabotage by a man who viewed the United States as a colonial power deserving of punishment and who sought to fundamentally transform our nation by importing a population hostile to our values, our Constitution, and our very existence. He is a viper who wore the flag as a costume while plotting its destruction, a fraud who swore to defend America from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and then proceeded to roll out the red carpet for those very enemies. Look at the blood-soaked ledger on his betrayal. Under his watch, the Muslim population exploded from 2.35 million, see, they were already here, to 3.45 million, a demographic time bomb planted through deliberate policy choices designed to alter the fabric of the republic permanently. In fiscal year 2016 alone, this traitor admitted 85,000 refugees, nearly half of them Muslim, the first time in American history that followers of Islam outnumbered Christians in our refugee intake. He shipped in 12,587 Syrians, 99% of them Muslim, while ignoring the Christian and Yazidi victims of actual genocide being crucified and beheaded by ISIS. He imported 43,000 Somalis, nearly all military-age males from a failed state that produces nothing but terrorists and pirates. Remember, we just showed you that video in Denmark. Bringing the total Somali population to nearly 100,000 strong, a fifth column that has turned Minnesota into a breeding ground for jihad. He raised the refugee ceiling to 110,000, prioritizing the Near East and Africa, ensuring that green cards to Muslim nations rose by 29%, flooding our cities with populations that have no intention of assimilating and every intention of establishing parallel societies governed by Sharia. The Christian betrayal stands as one of the most disgusting acts of religious persecution in modern history. While Coptic Christians in Egypt were being burned alive in churches and Yazidi girls were being sold into sex slavery, Obama looked the other way. He admitted 99% Muslims from Syria, despite the fact that Christians were the ones facing extermination. He deliberately excluded the persecuted while welcoming their persecutors, a sick inversion of American values that proves he viewed Islam as superior to Christianity and Muslims, as more deserving of American soil than the faithful who built this nation. He was not a president. He was a caliph in waiting, using the full power of the federal government to wage democratic jihad against his own citizens. Well, his citizenry is out of Kenya, but we'll move on. And what did this invasion cost us in blood? Obama has the blood of American patriots on his hands. Fort Hood, where Major Nadal Hassan screamed Allahu Akbar, murdering 13 soldiers, happened on his watch because political correctness prevented the army from stopping a known jihadist. The Boston Marathon bombing carried out by the Chechen refugee brothers who should have never been admitted tore limbs from children in the streets of American city. San Bernardino, where a Pakistani immigrant and his bride slaughtered 14 co-workers at a Christmas party. Orlando, where a Muslim gunman murdered 49 people at a gay nightclub. Each of these attacks were preventable. Each of those killers were admitted or radicalized under the open borders regime Obama championed. He did not keep us safe. He imported our executioners and then lectured us about Islamophobia while the bodies cooled. The vetting was a lie, a sick joke told to grieving families. He imported tens of thousands from Iraq, Somalia, Syria, Afghanistan, and Iran, failed states where no reliable intelligence exists, where terrorist identities cannot be verified, where birth records are written in sand. He temporarily slowed Iraqi processing in 2011 when terrorists slipped through, proving he knew the danger, yet he later expanded the program anyway, prioritizing speed over safety, diversity over security. He let the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, an organization packed with Islamist sympathizers, select who would enter our homeland. He placed the welfare of foreign Muslims above the safety of American citizens, treating every terrorist attack as an acceptable cost of his diversity project. Obama's refusal to name the enemy revealed his true allegiance. He would not say radical Islamic terrorism, instead peddling the lie that these attacks had nothing to do with Islam, that we needed to counter violent extremism by coddling the very communities producing the killers. He focused on Islamophobia while Christians were being slaughtered. He signed a deal with Iran, sending pallets of cash to the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, emboldening Hezbollah and Hamas while they plotted against us. He was not fighting terrorism. He was funding it, apologizing for it, and inviting it to set up shop in Dearborn and Minneapolis. Barack Obama is a cancer, a virus, a traitor who should face charges of treason for deliberately endangering the American people. He transformed our nation from a Judeo-Christian republic into a battleground for Islamic supremacy. He is the enemy within, the first servant of a foreign ideology, a man who hates the country he led and sought to replace its population with one more obedient to his anti-American vision. He should be remembered not as a president, but as a conqueror who succeeded where 9/11 failed, bringing the war home not with planes, but with passports. He is scum, filth, a betrayer of the oath and the blood of every American killed by the terrorists he admitted stains in his hands forever. Here's a video
We are no longer a Christian nation.
We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation.
The United States has been enriched by Muslim Americans.
Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States.
Islam has always been a part of America's story. There is a mosque in every state in our union and over 1,200 mosques within our borders. Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
James Wood said Biden was a bumbling catastrophe, granted, but it was this snake in the woodpile that spread an irreversible poison into the bloodstream of America. Wanted to show you this from Pastor Josh Howerton, okay?
Do not put up with anyone who redefines Jesus Christ. Jesus defines Jesus. Tucker posted this, and it was the first time that made me go, hey, brother, where are we right now? He said, this is his tweet, the people in charge don't want you to know this, but Muslims love Jesus too. That was what Tucker tweeted. Now, I'm trying to help you evaluate these things because stuff like that gets real confusing. Okay, Muslims love Jesus too. What you need to know, in Islam, basically every major world religion, they have an understanding or interpretation of who Jesus was. Jesus Christ is basically the only religious world figure that every religion takes time to give an interpretation of who he was and he wasn't. So basically what they do is they redefine who Jesus was, and then they say, we love that Jesus. In Islam, they call Jesus the prophet Isa. That's what they call him. They believe he was not God. He was not crucified. He was not raised from the dead. He did not pay the penalty for our sins. He worships Allah. He preaches the Quran. He is a Muslim, and in the end, he will help violently oppose Christians in the Islamic eschatology in the end times. That is exactly what 2 Corinthians 11:4 warned against when it said this. It warned that false prophets would come that will, quote, preach to you a Jesus other than the Jesus we preach to you. And then he says about these Corinthians that are being demonically deceived, he says, when they preach to you another Jesus, in other words, they're redefining Jesus and getting you to accept a totally different demonic person just with the same name. He's saying, you put up with it readily enough. Can I say something to you, Christians? Do not put up with anyone who redefines Jesus Christ. Jesus defines Jesus as he has revealed himself in the written and infallible word of God. And listen to me, heaven and earth will pass away. Not one word of that book will ever pass away because it was written by Jesus Christ himself, the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Imagine if pastors were able to stand behind the pulpit boldly and start declaring this type of information. Imagine if they were there and they were stating, hey, just want to let you guys know what we're up against with this next election. They got this Al-Saeed guy, for those folks that live in that state. And you guys better remember your values according to the Word of God. Hey, guys, we got this election coming up. I want to tell you that it's very important that you vote for this particular person. Oh, no, you can't do that. We can't mix politics and religion, blah, blah. All that brainwashing they gave us for all the years to make the pastors feel like they can't speak up. Look where it led to. Just saying. The DOJ to conduct poll monitoring, speaking of elections, in Minnesota primary. Observing Consciousness saw this from John Solomon and said, it's unfolding in front of our eyes, securing the elections by embedding the people who will ensure it before November. Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota. The Department of Justice is moving primary to primary, placing monitors, testing access, mapping resistance, and routing complaints directly into federal hands. Hennepin blocked DOJ from entering polling places. Ellison sent state observers to watch the federal observers. Every restriction now enters the record. More than 50 monitors across 7 counties. Federal channels open through November 3rd. The primaries are the field test. The people, authority, and reporting network are being locked into place now. November arrives with the election integrity architecture already embedded. Now, let's look at this. A reminder. All 50 states are now on notice. Don't forget.
All 50 states get this letter in the last week.
They did. They got them yesterday, actually, and I saw some, hyperventilating from some, including I think Lieutenant Governor in Utah, who's also the election official, and she seemed to think she was being persecuted because Utah is refusing to hand over their voter rolls in our civil litigation. No, Deirdre, this is not aimed at you. It is for everybody, and in fact, many election officials are lawyers. They know this, but no one has been enforcing these parts of our laws, and we're enforcing them. We're enforcing them against people who voted illegally. There are criminal prosecutions ongoing in that regard, and we're going to enforce them against the people whose responsibility is to ensure that doesn't happen.
Better stand by. All 50 states on notice. Oh, man. Now look at this one. Major win for Trump. Rhino, Indiana State Senator Spencer Deary loses by 3 votes after a recount flipped the race in favor of Trump, endorsed Paula Copenhaver. The Rhino, who opposed redistricting, led by just a few ballots before this. Trump's pick wins 6,332 to 6,329. Wow. This turns Trump's slate of endorsed candidates to 7 for 8 for that night. MAGA wins in the end. Joe Lang said, "Can you see the change? Who is directing the play? This is literally the first time I can recall that our side won a recount. What's changed? Hint, the enemy cheats like crazy, but the military has already mapped out every way they cheat and can prevent them when needed, like flipping a switch." Since we're on the topic of rhinos, just for a moment, wanted you to see this from Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican out of, looks like, Louisiana, condemns anti-Muslim remarks by fellow members of GOP. Grandpa's Free Advice gave us this. Man, this rhino guy is out there condemning Americans who correctly fear what Islam brings. Huh.
Specifically about Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed in Michigan, who just won that Democratic primary. Senator Tommy Tuberville said, Democrats just voted to send a terrorist to the Senate. He's a radical Islamist. Nancy Mace said, every single Muslim holding public office in America is a Trojan horse and a threat to both. We refuse to be silent. These are just 2 of these statements. Are you comfortable here? Does your party need to condemn language like this?
I condemn language like that. It's not to say that. Let me just stop. The Muslims that I typically work with are doctors working in a remote area of Louisiana who otherwise would not have a physician unless Dr. Muhammad actually agreed to move there and be their doctor.
Where did he come up with that mess? How did he come up with that big lie? Oh, we can only find doctors from other countries to come to our country to help us out.
Or she is the professor teaching students something positive. Now, so you have to take every community in its totality. Every community has a bad apple, and every community has those people, my gosh, weren't they wonderful people. Now, my exposure has been to the wonderful people. I condemn those statements. Mm-hmm. And everybody should be treated as an individual. If somebody's awful, they should be treated as awful. But we shouldn't treat everybody as awful because somebody with whom they're identified may be awful, if you follow.
So ignoring the pattern. This is how we lose. Oh, come on. There's a couple nice folks here. Blah, blah, blah. No, there's a pattern, buddy. Political Islam is not compatible with this country, and that's what's brought up here. Michigan Democrats voted to send a terrorist to the Senate. Has nothing to do with doctors. El-Sayed is a radical Islamist. Yes. Nancy Mace, every single Muslim holding public office in America is a Trojan horse. Yes. Public office. Yes. A threat to national security. He's just lumping it all together and saying it's the people too. I just happen to be. They're going to play this game with the minds over and over again. And then what do you think's happening now in other countries that played that game? It's not working well for them at all. It's having a huge effect in the fraud and more playing out in our country.
Sin has also issued
a geographic targeting order for Hennepin and Ramsey counties that require banks and money transmitters to report additional information about funds transferred outside of the United States. This will put a microscope on these businesses, advance prosecutions, and assist in the recovery of funds laundered internationally. Fraudsters in Minnesota stole at least $300 million meant for children in need.
Children in need, yeah, but we're talking billions that they did in fraud overall, and that's just one place. Not good. And we're going to get into more on the elections, how this is going to work out in Wisconsin, playing out in California, and also our health, the major shift in the vaccines and what's playing out there, and so much more. Folks, many of us want our furry best friends to thrive. At ltpetclub247.com are all natural, USA-made supplements and treats packed with immune-boosting Coriolis versicolor mushrooms. Shed antler power, transform your pet's health. And guess what? They're so pure, they're great for humans too.
Have been suffering from ulcerative colitis my whole life. I started dosing it very, very hard, like 4 60-milligram tablets 4 times a day. To make a long story short, within about 3 weeks, I stopped bleeding.
From biscuits supporting bones, joints, and organs to mushroom blends for wellness, we've got pets and people covered. Plus, we donate profits to animal rescues like the Beagle Freedom Project. Shop affordable, natural solutions. Head to ltpetclub247.com now for vitality for you and your pet. LT Pet Club 247, health for all, 24/7. Get yours in the description box below today.
She had no idea.
California is one of the most corrupt places for elections. They do like 38 million ballots without a voter booth. Everything. And Democrats get 5, 6, 7 ballots. And Republicans get none. They have to call in for their ballot. The whole thing is so crazy. You know, Republicans, and a lot of people don't want to call in. You know, they're not that much into it like we are, right? You know, we're into it. But the guys, you know, they don't know how to get a ballot. They don't get a ballot. Republican areas have a hard time getting a ballot. Nobody ever talks about that.
Yep, nobody talks about it. California. Yeah, Democrats get 5 or 6 ballots given to them. They just can vote like crazy. Republicans have to call in and say, hey, where's my ballot? It's over to Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin's governor race.
One thing that might help persuade them is how you're going to get your message out. And money is an important part of that. Francesca Hong has $715,000 in contributions January to June. Yours over, well, almost $9 million with cash on hand at about $3 million. That's very decisive. How do you plan to get your message out and combat what will certainly be a lot of media attention on this race?
The clear contrast race, Dana. I mean, we see big government socialism versus free markets, free enterprise, free people. And that's what I'll be talking about. And voters in Wisconsin are going to decide here in November. Do we want to be a state in decline like Minnesota and Illinois, our neighbors, or do we want to be one of the great states of America? Do we want to see our property taxes continue to skyrocket along with utility rates? Are we going to continue to allow the fraud that goes on in Wisconsin? I can tell you, I'm going to reduce property taxes. I'm going to get control of those utility rates that are nickel and diming people here in Wisconsin. And we're going to root out every bit of fraud that is going on in our state government. And it is in the millions, if not the tens of millions of dollars.
That's Tom Tiffany. He's going against that hater of America, Francesca Hong. It's interesting that he would just be at 50.1% now, and she's at 49.9%. Like, what in the world's going on with the mindset up there? All right, now to our health. The COVID shot for kids is off the list. The Oval Office, President Trump removed the COVID vaccine from the recommended childhood schedule. It never made sense for healthy kids in the first place, as Gunnar Engelman. Children face far lower risk from COVID than other adults. Europe never pushed it on young kids the way America did. The new schedule also drops the total recommended childhood vaccines from 18 down to 11, more in line with other developed countries. Parents get their decision-making power back. Doctors partner with families instead of issuing orders. The heavy-handed approach is over. Now, I wanted you to hear this from Fox News. Just pay attention to a few words here. I wanted to give you just something to think about.
Today, the president signed an executive order reducing the number of recommended childhood vaccines. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. drove the move.
We are comparing health outcomes in vaccinated versus unvaccinated children. Vaccines administered during pregnancy and outcomes ranging from allergies to autoimmune disease to autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders.
Now, Kennedy says there's no conclusion whether vaccines contribute to health problems. Senate Health Committee Chairman Bill Cassidy is a doctor. He called the order, quote, wrong. He believes this makes people more hesitant to get vaccines.
So instead of just leaving it at that, instead of giving them the number, you know, that you just said they're limiting the number, they didn't give the number, actually 11. And instead of supporting RFK Jr. and just what he had to say, it's, well, we had to find somebody to go against him. So Bill Cassidy, a doctor, said that this could provide hesitancy towards getting vaccines. You just had to do it, huh, Fox? Yep, there's some good people at Fox. I get it. A lot of you probably have it on 24/7. I know. But I'm just reminding you how they play mind games with the people. They've got to give you the negative. They can't just go full bore and give you a great report on why he's doing it, the information embedded into all this information, and more. Nope, it's inconclusive. And Bill Cassidy said that he's, this is dangerous. And that's what makes me sick about all this.
It's too many. Yeah. Like the hepatitis B, which is a sexual, you don't need to give it to a kid who's just practically born.
Exactly.
But with me, it's too many, but it's something bigger than too many. It's too big. It's too much at one time. They give these massive. Did you ever take a look? It looks like a Coca-Cola bottle. Like they're pumping this massive amount of fluid into a child's body. I don't care if it's water.
You know what the number is? 72.
And I want them to break it into 4 visits or 5 visits to the doctor. And I think that will have a huge impact. And the other thing is there are certain vaccines, the MMR. Do you know the MMR as an example? If you give them, certain studies. So what do you have to lose? You know what I'm doing? I'm saying, what do you have to lose? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Nobody's going to get hurt by it. MMR. Right. If you give them separately, the M, and the R, it's fine. When you put them together, they're sort of like a nuclear weapon, according to some. So why wouldn't you give them separately? Why would you? What's hurt by giving them separate?
So he's still showing support for some of the vaccines. Listen to this.
If you're a proud father, would you have vaccinated your children differently based on the recommendations?
Well, I did. I took my children for 5 different vaccinations. In other words, I broke it up. The one visit where they just pump, what seemingly looks like gallons, where they pump so much in. I took all of my children from day one. I believed in this a long time ago. I took them with my wife. I took them through 5 different visits to the doctor. Essentially, they get 20% each, and I had no problem. So it's inconvenient. It's 5 stops, but it's something that I think will have a huge impact on.
So there's people out there, no matter what, no matter how much you talk to them about these jabs and what's inside of them and more, at least there's a reduction, making progress, and trying to get people to split up the amount of times they go in to get their jabs instead of getting filled up all at once with all the jabs. So I get it. I get where they have to meet halfway. You can't go out there and try to push out no vaccines to everyone. They'll lose you. They tune you out. And it's just, in my opinion, just got to go through it with prayer.
No issues. They know they've been pressured into doing things that they didn't want to do, and medical science has told them for years that their concerns are not valid. This order does 2 fundamental, incredibly important things. First is we get off of this ridiculous path of having our children get 70 to 90 shots. That is wantonly excessive. Remember, each and every one of these shots produces a profound immunological response. So across any large population, if you give a kid shot after shot after shot, you're going to have vaccine injuries. You're going to have immunological issues. You're going to have potentially neurological issues. Secondly, and so important to you, Mr. President, is the unbundling of the shot. Why do you need to have these shots bundled into these packages? Why can't you split it into 5 visits and give this young body, if a parent wants to do a vaccine, 1 shot at a time? Why is it that in Japan, you can get a separate measles shot, a separate mumps shot, a separate rubella shot, but in America, it has to all be packaged together? This is a courageous action, Mr. President. This is an action that ensures the dignity of patients, the dignity of parents. It restores choice. It says we're going to let the parent and the doctor make a sound medical decision. And I'll just say one more time, the fact that you have had the courage to push this forward, knowing the unfair criticisms from some in the establishment, and to give the chance for Bobby, who spent decades representing parents, to stand here today. It's such a profound moment. It's such a beautiful moment, and it's going to lead to such incredible advances in our understanding of children's health and making sure that, yes, we can be a country that has safety and security for our families and our children, while at the same time protecting patient choice. You can have both these things. This order accomplishes it. I'm so proud to be standing here today, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So let's get into the stuff that's going on with Fauci. Remember the guy that introduced the COVID jab, the one that they lied to us about? Oh, it's going to be 100% effective, 95% effective, 90%, 70%. Get your booster, blah, blah, blah. You know, we've all been through it. I don't have to go through it in detail. Just want to remind you, Vigilant Fox posted this. An outraged Ainsley Earhart says the rage of mothers who lost unborn babies to the COVID shot is going to unleash hell on the experts who told us that it was safe.
It is extremely important for pregnant women and women planning to get pregnant to get vaccinated.
So all 3 of them were on this text. He's saying, I'm worried that it could cause miscarriage in the first trimester. And she writes back, especially after dose 2. Then a month later was that soundbite that you just heard when he's saying no red flags. Women can get pregnant. Women planning to get pregnant, they need to get vaccinated. So he's saying one thing in the text to these other experts. Why didn't any of those other 2 experts speak out? Why didn't the CDC director or the Surgeon General say, Dr. Fauci, you told us something different in our text messages a month ago. Are we lying to the American people? What if a woman is pregnant right now and she takes that second dose and she has a miscarriage? Is that our fault? Because we didn't tell the public the truth? What if you had a miscarriage in 2021? Are you like wondering now, was it because of the vaccine? Dr. Fauci told me I was fine to take it. This is going to open a whole new can of worms. People are going to sue because they're going to be so upset about this. They lost their children. How many children if this is true, if the vaccine did cause miscarriages, how many children are in heaven because of that misinformation?
Do you get it? You see what's playing out? Any of you out there, I mean, you're probably listening, you're nodding your head, yes or no. How many of you have known somebody, friends, family members, maybe been to church, and you notice the uptick on the number of prayers for these poor families have had miscarriages, since 2021, 2020. And deep inside, man, you just want to walk over and say, did you happen to take the jab? I know many talk to, they got the jab, and I ask them, I'll just be front with them, say, look, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. Please don't be mad at me. I'm just wondering, I've been doing some research, trying to put this all together. Did you happen to get the COVID shots? And then, oh yeah, I got them. They'll always say, yes, I got them. I got 2. I got this. Okay, I was just wondering. Well, what does that have to do with my miscarriage? I was just wondering. Oh, nothing. Just do your research on it. I was just doing some things. I'm trying to put it all together, trying to figure it out. If they really want to talk about it, they will. Fauci deserves to go down.
Continuing to be a bulldog in the search for truth and accountability.
It is extremely
this is just one
important
back and forth text message thread from the thousands and thousands that we're going to be going through here. But again, a lot of people were injured and suffered, and it wasn't from an accident. It appears to be deliberate, dishonest messaging where Dr. Fauci, he was worried about one thing but pushed another on the American people.
I mean, the American people are hearing this now, and they're seeing these texts, and they're wondering how much more of this misguidance, if it is, could be out there as Congress continues to dig through these texts.
Yeah, I think we all have a lot more questions. We are certainly going to dig in here in Florida. We're excited to work with the Senate and the Department of Justice. We've issued subpoenas. We'll be following up with more subpoenas as we gather additional evidence from, the cell phone and other potential devices. But at the end of the day, we need to know how widespread the deception went. All the while, we know he was pushing for fame and fortune, book deals, awards, making millions of dollars on the side while people are suffering. So there's clearly a deception here that people suffered from. We'll keep seeking accountability.
Wonder how much more the mainstream media will cover this type of information on Fauci. C3, you want some truth? They didn't care how many old people died. They didn't care how many kids got myocarditis. Remember the heart problems with the jab. They didn't care how many babies were miscarried. They didn't care how many businesses were ruined. None of it mattered. They only cared that Trump wasn't reelected. It's the facts. I've had this conversation so many times and people still don't know. And I say, let me give you a little history lesson. And I go back and I say, look, how do you think that they showed up with COVID all of a sudden? You remember that was the year of election. They needed to have the mail-in ballots play out. So they put this whole master plan together to make sure there was no way that Trump would stay back in office because they knew he was loved by the people. As a matter of fact, speaking of being loved by the people, real quick, showing this is the kind of stuff that they see. Okay? Just yesterday, President Trump standing side by side with young champions of the 2026 Patriot Games. Listen to this. They're screaming USA, USA. President Trump's beaming, pure fire in his eyes. The teenager patriots are conquered the ultimate test of strength, grit. $250,000 scholarship split between the male and female victors. These kids will never forget the moment the President of the United States stood with them under the lights. And they're celebrating. They're having a blast. That's the kind of stuff that was happening leading into the 2020 election. They knew that this man was going to be overwhelmingly winning. So they had to come up with a plan. Hey, I got a plan. Let's throw COVID out early. We weren't going to do it this way. We'll do it now. And then we're going to make him look bad. And then we're going to do mail-in ballots. And then if anything happens, we'll just have the water pipes break, shut down the elections that night, and then we'll just print out as many elections. We got all the printouts from China, and we'll bring those in. And we'll just make sure that all the numbers are reversed on the computer screens and more because we got access to all the computers. He's not going to get back in. But they had to make people believe it, right? The sheep have to go, oh, the reason he lost is because mail-in. And man, 81 million votes is because everybody was at home voting and they didn't have to get in their car and drive in. They had to deceive the masses. Why? Because they didn't want him back in and they didn't care. Remember, Satanists. And then they used the media to help them also. Remember this?
Fox News, Rupert Murdoch's company, night after night, peddles these incredibly dangerous, poisonous lies about the literally life-saving coronavirus vaccine.
We all know already, right, that if you get vaccinated, that vaccine will basically prevent you from getting sick with COVID. It will prevent you from having to go to the hospital with COVID symptoms. It will prevent you from dying from COVID. Great. Good for you.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real world data.
Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person to person, spreading and spreading, sickening some of them, but not all of them. And the ones that it doesn't sicken don't know they have it. And then they give it to even more people because they didn't recognize they were.
If you're vaccinated, you don't have a risk. And that's the reason why we say it's as simple as black and white. You're vaccinated, you're safe. You're unvaccinated, you're at risk. Simple as that.
Right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person.
All right, I've had enough of listening to them. Now, listen to this. Fox News anchors gasp on air as the billionaire Bill Ackman reveals he and his wife suffered 7 miscarriages during COVID.
Shock and outrage over Dr. Fauci's newly released text messages revealing his private concerns about the COVID vaccine and the risk of miscarriages back in 2021, just 1 month before he declared a very different story.
So hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman devastated, reacting, quote, Neary and I had 7 miscarriages trying to have a second child during COVID, and then time ran out. What was he thinking?
Oh,
yeah. My God. All right. Other things in health, remember, we were told the transgenders will no longer be funded by the government for transgender surgery, mutilation of children, and more. It's been a big uphill battle for all of us when it comes to health. Trump now, the administration upgrades the pipelines to move 5 to 7 million barrels daily around the Strait of Hormuz. In a massive announcement, the Trump administration says oil pipelines have been massively upgraded and are now moving 5 to 7 million barrels of oil per day around the Strait of Hormuz.
Look, the only one that has control of the Strait of Hormuz right now is the United States Navy. We have a blockade that's been infallible. It's a steel wall. And we let people in that we want to let in, and those people come in, and they've been coming in and they're going out. So it's actually open now. We do not let them go into Iran. They're not admitted into the strait to go to Iran, but it's open for others. Now, a little bit complex because they will, on occasion, drop a mine, and we find the mines. You know, we've mine swept the entire strait, as you probably maybe heard, maybe you didn't hear. But
so the combined flows now average 15 million barrels per day. 20 million were actually hit on Sunday in the Gulf region. Oh, man. Also, just want to tell you real quick, Rand Paul says all the gold is there. And he explains how the gold shall destroy the Fed. Remember, we've got our gold there, sitting there. Kentucky. We run annual deficits of $2 trillion. The Federal Reserve buys about a third of that debt by creating new money. Every new dollar dilutes the value in the dollars already in people's pockets. Gold does not expand when Congress spends. Paper does. That is the difference, Rand Paul. Remember Q, Ripcord said, do we have the gold? Yes, gold shall destroy the Fed. Even Q told us we have the gold. Speaking of gold and silver, we had our video drop Saturday. Silver up 14% in a month. Japan, Bretton Woods, end of Kerry era. You don't want to miss this amazing interview Dr. Kirk Elliott and I did together, showing silver price actually just went up 14% in a month and 9% just in the past week.
And for the first time in probably 100 years, deciding the Fed is going to be involved in foreign currencies rather than just our own domestic currency, and they got involved. Which now they're not just bailing out the U.S. economy, they're bailing out other economies. LT, this is inflationary. Gold and silver do well during times of inflation. This is what I want to tell everybody, is the message that we just said is kind of like, yuck, this is not good. But yet when you allocate into the right things, it could actually be a very prosperous moment for everybody by understanding the trends and allocating properly given what we've got.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. So in our recording, silver was at $63 a few days ago, and now it's up at $65, $65 and 30. So folks, it's going up. He predicted that August and showed us August. They were predicting big numbers going up in silver. And so just want to remind you, go to amweknow.com/gold, make that call and reach out to them. Have your IRA brought over from fiat dollars into that, and you'll be absolutely amazed how that's going to play out. Now, wanted to show you what happened recently on your screen. If you're listening, you'll hear them clap. As the Massachusetts governor, Maura Healey, signs the bill for abortions up to birth. And all these liberal Democrats around her celebrate. Rob Schneider, it's purely demonic that endangered species get more protections than human beings. Redheaded libertarian, apparently that thing that doesn't happen needs to be ritualistically protected. Mike Lee said Massachusetts declares the worship of Moloch as its official state religion. If you guys don't know about Moloch, you can look it up. If you're looking at your screen, you'll notice that basically a leader in whatever religion they were following at the time picks up a baby, hands it to an idol where they have burning hands of that idol, and then they push the baby into the fire, and they believe they're making a sacrifice for the greater good of their country, to bring prosperity to the land. And they would do this while they would beat the drums so you couldn't hear the baby screaming. That's after the baby's born. And now what are you looking at there in Massachusetts? They're celebrating that when the baby's just about to be born, you can get rid of it. Now there are 10 states plus DC that allow abortion up until birth. And so Alaska, Colorado, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, and DC. Yelp, Dick's Sporting Goods, Starbucks will reimburse employees out of state travel fees for abortions. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta offer health plan coverage and travel reimbursement for out-of-state abortions. That's from Kentucky Girl. Nancy H. says, some videos don't just make you uncomfortable. They make you stop and ask what kind of society we've become. I watched this as they were signing this and felt a deep sadness settle on my chest. Not anger first, not political rage, just grief. Grief for the little ones who never get the chance to take a breath, and grief for the women who are being told this is empowerment when it looks a whole lot more like something darker. Scripture doesn't dance around the value of life. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Children are a heritage from the Lord. You shall not murder. We've reached a place where some celebrate the decision to end a life that is already fully formed, already capable of feeling pain, already made in the image of God, and they smile while they do it. That should never feel normal. It should never feel progressive. It should never feel like freedom. Real freedom is the courage to protect the weakest among us, and real strength is the woman who chooses life even when it's hard. Real progress is a culture that refuses to sacrifice its children on the altar of convenience. I'm not here to shame anyone who's already walked through its pain. And folks, God's mercy is bigger than our worst decisions, but I'm here to say out loud that too many are afraid to say, this is not healthcare, it's not compassion, it's not the America our grandparents fought to protect. Vote for life, pray for life, speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, because if we stay silent, while the most innocent are discarded, we will answer for it. Lord, give us hearts that break for what breaks yours. Restore the fear of God in this land and protect every child still wanting to be born. If you guys are struggling with those issues, anybody listening, and we know we're praying for you, we love you, you can reach out to us, send us an email. We can direct you to the right places to get help if you're struggling. We've done that for many at And We Know. Reach out to us. If you're looking at your screen, President Trump signed to protect children. Remember, with the jabs? And the Democrats signed to kill the children. They also work, Democrats, to get rid of the people that are already here. They don't like to help them. They want them gone. Here's Los Angeles' solution to homelessness.
Something I want to show everybody. And I learned about, this is a bag that I learned that they're giving our homeless neighbors with American taxpayer dollars. And in this bag, when you go in here, now we're talking about helping the most vulnerable people in our country, a continuum of care. This is not a continuum of care that I'm looking for. This is drug paraphernalia that's in this bag. This brown bag that's handed to people, homeless people, that are addicted to drugs, that have mental illness, hardworking people's money. People are putting these together with their hands to give to people that are already addicted. Has nothing to do with politics. Has everything to do with caring for people properly.
So the Democrats kill the children. They give drugs to the folks that are homeless. They have no idea what's going on. The Democrat Socialists of America were on TV and they're arguing, about why they want to abolish police and prisons. They're just lost it. This guy asked, well, if you don't want any police, what happens if a girl gets raped?
Right, but it says defund police on the website. That's your goal. And also to get rid of prisons and jails, correct?
Yes.
So if my daughter is assaulted and raped, is there any agency that would seek to find her assailant and bring him to justice?
Of course, yeah, of course,
What
absolutely.
would it be if not police, and where would he be if not a jail?
So I guess I really want to avoid getting kind of caught into these hypotheticals and talk more about the reality that we're actually facing right now, which is that we're spending absolutely outrageous amounts of money on police and policing, and we're not spending money on things that actually make people safe and feel safe, which is things like actually well-lit streets. The streetlights in Los Angeles, everybody agrees it's a huge problem.
Oh, my goodness. So to prevent these, to help folks so they don't get raped, and everything, we're going to put more lights in the streets. She couldn't come up with an answer when she realized, wait a minute, yeah, what are we going to do if folks get raped, killed? In this world, there's no police, there's no jails. Democrats, Socialists of America, how else do they think?
Hate doesn't live here, except I hate Trump, the unborn, God, ICE, white men, Republicans, the police, America, the American flag, traditional families, border walls, because of Trump. Elon Musk, pro-lifers, Second Amendment, Christians, fossil fuel, capitalism, mega, billionaires, and Israel. But hate don't live here.
Hate doesn't live here, but yet they hate. Random HVAC guy reminded us of this. They say, these liberals, the Democrats, Trump derangement syndrome. They'll say Trump raped kids on Epstein Island. No, that was Bill Clinton. Paxton helped a pedophile. No, that was Tim Walz. Trump insider traded. No, that was Nancy Pelosi. Don Jr. did coke and paid hookers. No, that was Hunter Biden. Trump pardoned his family because he's corrupt. No, that was Joe Biden. Elon Musk bought the election. No, that was George Soros. Donald Trump ruined the economy. No, that was Joe Biden. Donald Trump destroyed healthcare. No, that was Obama. Republicans did this. No, that was the Democrats. Headlines are coming out finally showing that looks like things are going to happen. Obama's Trump-Russia collusion report was corrupt from the start. Newly released documents open a path to true origins of the Russia hoax. Are we going to see people perp walk?
Or will, okay, let's just say will we finally see perp walks? Will these people be held to account?
Yeah, well, we're seeing perp walks, right, for criminals. Now the question is, will we see perp walks for those who clearly were abusing the color of law and the color of government authority to carry out political vendettas? I think so. There is a very active grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida. You don't call a grand jury and start hauling witnesses before it. Unless you have a crime or two or three or four that you're investigating. The activity down in Fort Pierce has been very fast-paced. It's really accelerating under Joe DeGeneva, the special assistant U.S. attorney down there. It looks to me like an operation that probably would be in a position to make some indictment decisions before Labor Day or just after Labor Day. There's been some holdups. Obviously, there's some evidence that the prosecutors have wanted from the Senate. They don't have it yet, so they got to squeeze that out of the Senate. But they've been securing some cooperation from some very important witnesses that used to work in the FBI or the intelligence community. And it's walking and talking like a duck that intends to deliver some accountability. So
it's about time. So Department of War CTO put this out. No enemy will stop us. They cannot stop us. They won't stand in our way. President Donald J. Trump. And he's standing there with that meme. It says no games. Posted at 10:40. Ultra Magadine saw this. Saw the post at 10:40. If you go to Q1040, it says, here we go. Would you believe they called the White House for comment prior to publishing? When you put this all together, it becomes a very clear message. No enemy will stop us. They cannot stop us. They won't stand in our way. President Donald J. Trump. No more games. Here we go. I believe this meme is also a reminder of what Q told us in post number 26. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled, save and spread.
For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you again. We are so grateful to you. Thank you so much for what you provide for us in our daily living. Thank you for our friends and our family and those you've connected with us through this channel, through our church, through the many folks that have just been needing so much to reach out to those that are standing on the truth and standing on your word. We ask that you continue to protect those on the front lines, protect the military, protect many who will probably never know about that are fighting for our freedom day in and day out against this entrenched enemy controlled by Satan. We ask that you would help us to wake up the masses to what invasion is happening in our own country. We lift up those in UK that are suffering, those in Europe that didn't make this happen, that are praying every day, hoping to have these invaders removed somehow, some way, to clean up these nations. We ask that your will be done, most of all, on earth as it is in heaven. We bring this to you in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in. Thank you for your love and your prayers. It has been overwhelming for all of us just to have you a part of this, to watch you change so many lives, to have you respond to our interviews and more. Really just melts our hearts. For now, this LT Semper Fi with Them We Know, signing out.